Okay, let's get started, guys. Woo. Once again, we got great weather. Thanks for everybody for coming. This is awesome. I love how this is growing. We were just talking that this will probably be our last event in this facility, which is great. That means we're upgrading and we're going to find something bigger and keep growing it. So keep sharing. Agent Upgrade, for those of you who haven't been here before, it's really just a community of agents. It's something that kind of a passion of mine of training and development, but it's also about upgrading your business, upgrading your real estate career, and also upgrading your life. So there's a lot of social aspect that happens here, but then we also talk about mindset, we talk about fitness, we talk about a lot of things in here that just upgrades your entire life. This is part of a very extensive program. So this is, there's part one, and there's 10 modules in part one, and then part two. So what we're talking about today is negotiating contracts and commissions. It's all part of a bigger plan that I have, and I've got all of this every day. If you wonder what Pablo does every day, I do a lot of this every day, and I love it. I'm just soaking this up. So I think in the next 3-4 months, I should have something to really present people. Please spread the word. The only way this is going to grow is if we all share this. What I love about this is it's brokerage agnostic, which means that this has no affiliation with any real estate company. It's just for agents. And I do this kind of out of the goodness of my heart right now so that we can grow it. Eventually one day I'm going to have something that I'll try and sell everybody, so stay tuned. But absolutely, you know, until I actually have something I can sell, it's all free. So just enjoy it for now. You know, again, share, use the selfies, do a hashtag Agent Upgrade. That'll help us with the social media. I'd appreciate it. And today we're talking about negotiating contracts. So I got my power suit on today because got to be strong today, right? First things first. The first question is, are you a great negotiator and why? So I want to go around the room here and just ask for you, what does it mean to be a great negotiator? So any thoughts? What does it mean to be a great negotiator? Simone.
I know what it wasn't for me. Can I
share? Yeah.
So back when I first started, and I know Pablo helped me get out of this, was I used to always like be a bulldog during negotiation. Like bitchy. And that didn't, I realized after, because he could hear the way I sounded. This is back 10 years ago. But that didn't work. So.
This is why Simone doesn't negotiate contracts anymore. I negotiate all the contracts.
But it was, you know, I thought that was the better way to do it. Like I was fighting, and I'm sure, hopefully I didn't do this to anybody here, but I thought that if I won myself that we'd win, but that wasn't the case.
Greg, you've negotiated a lot. What do you think are the characteristics of a great negotiator?
So the thing that's important to me is that you understand who you're negotiating with.
Good one.
You also understand what it is that they want, and be able to put yourself in their shoes and think, you know, what is this guy going to tell me? And when you talk to them, you have to understand how they're going to think about what you're telling them and how it's going to affect them. And also kind of find out what it is that you already agree on, what don't you agree on, and what things can change. And a lot of that comes down to understanding where they want to go with something.
For sure.
Like you might find out later that they're going to demolish the house anyway, so they really don't care about anything. So it's like once you know that, it's like, well, okay, I don't need to worry about any of that stuff now.
So understanding what's important to the other side.
It's important to them because you don't know until you know.
Awesome. Great. Cheryl, any thoughts on what it takes to be a strong negotiator? Or a good negotiator?
I think I agree with Simone because I always felt, and Greg, because I always felt like I needed to win, and I needed to win them more than even they felt they needed to win. So it became about me instead of about them.
Good one.
I've always been surprised when someone says, no, we're good there. And I'm like, oh, I need to get you more.
So making it about your client and not about yourself. Awesome. Nitsu.
I always make sure that I'm not emotionally involved in the contract.
Good one.
I you know, sometimes agents get mad and, you know, gearing his conversation and changing his tonalities, and I say, I hold my back and he said, listen, it's not about us. As long as the buyers and sellers are happy, we are here to get the contract done.
Okay.
So that helps me a lot.
Curtis, what do you think that a client thinks they're getting when they hire a realtor as far as negotiation?
Best value,
Best value?
one way or the other.
Okay.
Whatever side of it.
Yeah.
It's got to be value.
Value.
Right? And I think I'm listening because I haven't obviously haven't done much
Yeah.
of this. The I have to win, whether it's the client or the realtor, is never the right result. Like
No.
Uh-huh.
both parties at the end have to be satisfied.
Right.
I
Okay.
did learn that, Curtis.
Yeah.
Greg.
One of
I
the
didn't-
things,
just
I know.
generally like that.
Greg.
one of the things I learned in negotiating is you always want to throw in a few things that you can give up. So
Mhm.
put extra stuff in there that you're willing to give up because people always want to get something off the deal.
Uh-huh.
So if you throw in a few extra things, then you have something you can give away that you don't care about.
Right. So providing some extras to show the value.
And you might just get them. Like
Yeah.
you might ask for things that you don't really want. Just say, well, I want the hot tub or I want whatever. And then they say, oh, we don't want to give that up. Well, that's a win for them,
Cool.
right?
So let's look at some of the theory of negotiating. There are, according to this, it's called the Thomas Kilmann instrument. There's 5 different types of negotiating styles. Anybody seen this movie, The Negotiator? Poor Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
But Samuel L., good guy. Anybody seen this movie? It's pretty cool. So the negotiator becomes the hostage taker at one point, and then Kevin Spacey comes in and he has to negotiate with the master negotiator, and you get these 2 guys duking it out. Really cool movie. But let's look at these 5. It's very similar. If you remember a few weeks ago, a month ago, we did personality styles. Does everybody remember that one?
Yeah.
Right, and there was the 4 different personality styles. So let's look at the 5 different negotiating styles just so we can understand a little bit of the theory behind it. Number 1 was competing, okay? And this has an emphasis on winning, and you can see some of the characters I pulled up here. You can't handle the truth. Remember that one? And Harvey Specter. Anybody watch Suits, the TV show? I'm like, I don't watch TV, but I binge watch Suits. I love it. Harvey Specter is like an idol to me. I think the guy's great. And then, of course, Billions, if anybody's seen that. Bobby Axelrod. These are strong, tough negotiators. They want to win, right? So the emphasis for these guys is winning at all costs. They don't care about anything. They're known as steamrolling to victory, right? Again, just I don't care what your emotions are. I don't care what you're thinking. I'm going to win this thing. Success is absolutely vital in this style. And of course, there are no time for niceties. This is I want my way and I want it now. Now, the challenge with having this negotiating style is that this can leave the other party resentful. Would you agree? Like, imagine if I was a real estate negotiator, and I'll never forget this this story, and it's a local agent, so I'm not going to say who it is, but he was like a strong competing negotiator, and every deal he did, he was on the phone like a bulldog. He was like, he didn't care, just I know you know who it is, but just like a bulldog and a real jerk, right? Came across as a real jerk. And then what happened is that he kind of got ostracized in the community, and nobody wanted to deal with the guy. It's like an offer came in from that person, and you're, oh, geez, I don't want to deal with that person again. And it left the other party resentful, and then we have a reputation in this industry we have to maintain. That doesn't go very far. So, yes.
Can I say something? And he said to me, oh, you're going to interrupt anyway. So,
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Because I can relate to this. This is exactly how I used to act, which I'm not proud of. But it also put my client's deal at risk. Like that's the sickening part about it. There's me and how stupid I looked, but it was like I jeopardized bringing that deal together. And you pointed that out to me, and I was just like, oh my god. Okay. So
Can anyone think of a famous, infamous politician that might fit this bill? Yeah. So, competing is a certain style, and yes, it can rub people the wrong way, and that's why it's not necessarily the best way to go all the time, right? Second way is accommodating. Now, this is all about relationships, right? And the accommodating style, it really favors peace over conflict. It's like avoiding conflict. This is just the sure, no problem. I'm going to offer you this. No problem. I'll take it. I don't want to rock the boat, right? So this is very soft style. Come on in.
Come on in. We got a seat right here for you.
Yeah.
Is there one back there? Oh yeah,
I think there's one spot back there if you like. Now, of course, if you're doing the accommodating style of negotiating, which is very easy, this is like virtually just accepting, you have a risk of being labeled a pushover, right? You could imagine if I negotiated with Nitsu and every time I give him an offer, he just comes back with an acceptance, I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome. I'm going to send you offers all the time, right? The problem is that, you get kind of labeled as a pushover and you're not going to be a strong negotiator. And I wrote here, but when would you actually want to use this, right? If you're in a position where you're losing, this is a very good method to get the deal closed. You're in the 11th hour of a negotiation with a client and you're representing the buyer, say, and you've been back and forth negotiating. All of a sudden they say, Pablo, we heard there's another offer coming in. We love your offer all of a sudden. Now I'm accommodating, right? So it's not to say that this is a worse style, it's just, again, it's a different style and we have to know when to use each of the styles in negotiating. So accommodating is one. Third type is avoiding. This is the style where basically it's like, I am not engaging in this negotiation. Pumping the brakes, right? I don't want to deal with it. It's too stressful, or whatever it is, you're avoiding. You're going to delay or avoid in order to buy time sometimes. And you really don't want to argue. Like this is like non-confrontational. I'm not arguing, I'm not dealing with this. Somebody says, I'm going to offer you this. You just go, or you don't respond, right? Have you ever had a deal where you submitted an offer and it's been like 3, 4, 5 hours and you haven't received any kind of acknowledgement at all? And you get a little frustrated as a realtor and you're like, why aren't they talking to me? Let me know that you got it at least, right? Well, this can be frustrating, right? And now, when would be a good time, because anybody think, like just brainstorming here, when would be a good time to be in the avoiding style of negotiating in real estate?
Say never.
What's that?
Say never.
Never, okay. Anybody think of a time where you actually might want to use one? Mark?
Well, I think sometimes when you're very far apart in price.
Okay.
And I'm on the buying side, and we've come up with what we feel is a fair market offer.
Yeah.
And the offer is expiring at 9 o'clock, and the last negotiation was at noon.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes say to my clients, let's wait till 6 or 7 p.m. tonight just to let them think about it.
Would you let them know that you're going to wait until this, or are you going to just let them stew on it without a response?
I would generally, just because I'm also amiable,
Aha. Okay.
I would let them know that we're going to have to think about their counter offer, but I wouldn't tell them when I would be getting back to them.
Got it. Greg?
You might want to avoid them if you think you have another offer coming in.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So if you can't act immediately, avoiding is a good way to deal with that. So you think you're negotiating an offer, you've negotiated to a certain point, and then you hear rumblings that another offer might come in and it might be better. Now you can avoid or delay the negotiations in order, and there's many different tactics as there are for every style of negotiation in how to avoid. So yes, if you see that there might be another offer coming in, there could be a chance to avoid. I got a little double clicker going here. Compromising. This is the fourth style of negotiating, is compromising. This means splitting the difference. Now, we've probably all had the negotiation that ended up at here, and we're 10 grand apart, split the difference, right? We've all seen that one. In this, and Simone will disagree with me, this is a technical term, so please don't get too hung up on this. What this means is that nobody wins. I wanted this, we're gonna meet in the middle. That means neither of us won our price. We're gonna meet in the middle. Now, yes, do we win at the end because yes, we accomplished a deal? But it's kind of a, nobody wins in this scenario, right? Nobody's actually, well, the realtor wins. but let's not go there.
It's not about us.
It's not about us, but we win in the end. Why do you think I got into this business? Is because we always win at the end. So nobody wins in this because nobody's actually receiving their terms or their price. There's a compromise, and in a compromise, nobody wins. This is supposed to be the fair and reasonable. So again, when nobody wins, this is fair because there's not one winner and one loser. You have two losers, so it's fair and reasonable. Of course, it's not ideal, but it's also not harmful. So this is just a really like steady Eddie kind of negotiation. And what I wrote here, the last point is, this is a quick solution, but it may miss potential gains. There could be some opportunities to push harder in a negotiation, and when you split the difference or you compromise, you may have missed some opportunities. That's why it's the easiest. I got the easy button there. This is the easiest form of negotiation. It really involves very little conflict. Let's just split the difference. How does that sound? Great, right? And I'm not saying this is wrong, but this is another style. Now we have collaborating. This is the opposite, which is this is the win-win, okay? This is honestly a little bit more rare in real estate. I would say that this is something that we see quite often in a business deal, when you're negotiating a business sale where you are the seller and there is a direct buyer and there's nobody in between. You can have a compromise. Compromise involves, of course, working together to create a solution that everybody's going to win in this solution. Does anybody think of a win-win type negotiation in real estate?
Well, if you're working on a close and you're not flexible in the price, but you can say, I can be flexible in the close date if that works for you. I can, I can do other things, but I won't change my price.
Sure.
So are there other things that would be beneficial to you, and there might be some things that they'll come up with.
Sure. One of the things that, like you pointed out earlier, that's really important here, you really have to understand the other side's interests in order to come up with a creative solution. And creative solutions are part of the collaborating style of negotiating. This collaborating, if you think about it, means group, means togetherness, right? It means we're all going to think of a solution that's going to work for everyone. I'll give you an example of a type of creative solution that I came up with once. It was actually my very first transaction, which I'll never forget. And I had a buyer that was looking for a property in a specific townhouse complex. They couldn't find what they wanted. I ended up door knocking. I knocked on a bunch of doors and I found somebody who was looking to sell. And I basically said, look, I'm going to bring you an offer. I brought them an offer. They said, looks good to me. Are the price and terms good? Good. And I ended up double ending my very first deal, which was like, hey, I can do this, right? and it was kind of a win-win situation. They were actually looking to sell, but they didn't have to go through a whole like listing their home and getting it on the market and finding a buyer. I handled the transaction for both of them. They enjoyed the whole process. It was like a real win-win, good feeling thing. That was the last feel good win-win I had in real estate. But yeah, it really involves creative solutions, and this also builds on long-term relationships. So this is really something that you're going to do in order to maintain long-term relationships in real estate. Now, negotiating in real estate is a little bit different than typical negotiations. We've got our buyers way over there, and we've got our sellers way over here, and then we get these people in between, right? Which is almost unfortunate. And what we do as the realtors is we just do a lot of communication, okay? So real estate negotiations, if I were to go to Nitsu and say, Nitsu, we've got some office space for lease, and he says, okay, I'd like to lease that office space, and I say, well, we're asking this, and he says, well, I'll pay you that, and we have a negotiation back and forth, then we obviously incorporate the different negotiation styles, and we kind of do our thing, and we negotiate. My question is, when you are negotiating as a realtor, who are you negotiating with?
With the seller or with the buyer.
So say you're this person right here. You're the buyer's realtor. Who are you negotiating with?
Seller
via their agent.
Sorry, Curtis?
Seller via their agent.
You're negotiating with the seller via the agent, okay? Greg?
That's what I said.
Oh yeah, sorry, same thing. Anybody else?
And with your buyer as well.
Yeah, do you ever have to negotiate with your buyer?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I think you're negotiating with all of them.
Very. Now, you don't really have a direct tie to here, do you? You have to go through this person, right? So to say you're negotiating with the seller, it's hard to negotiate if you're not communicating with them, right? So you can communicate to the seller's agent and hope that they communicate that back to the sellers, right? So it's a little bit of an indirect, but directly, you're actually negotiating with two different parties. You're negotiating with the buyers and the seller's realtor.
Well, it's via the realtor, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're still, once it's written, you're still negotiating in that sense. In a way, you're still sending your message directly to the vendor.
You're sending your message to the vendor. communication is a really important thing, right? So if I get on the phone and I'm a total bulldog and I'm like, you know what, my client's not going to take that and you better pass this on to your client. But you as an agent are amiable, you're not going to relay that style over to the sellers, right? So your negotiation with the sellers is really ineffective because of this person in between. So I think you're actually negotiating with this person and they are negotiating with this person. So there's kind of a double negotiation going on, and you have to understand the personality types and the negotiating styles of the people on either side. We have very little knowledge of the style, the negotiating style of the party that's two ahead, right? Depending on how many questions we ask.
You're also negotiating with yourself in your own head, like the things that go through your head, and you're also sometimes you have to negotiate with your family or your significant other, right? Like a phone call comes in and you got to negotiate with your family and try to make sure that they know that you can exit the dinner table or whatever you're doing, if that's what you do.
Sure.
So there's also the whole head game that goes on, I think.
We didn't even take that into account, where the buyers have parents that are funding the whole thing,
Right.
and they're negotiating with their parents over here.
Right.
A lot of negotiating going on in a real estate deal. So what really happens is that the buyer's agent and the seller's agents are intermediaries. And an intermediary in a negotiation is a kind of a middleman, right, that does the communicating between the buyer and the seller. Some tips for negotiating for realtors. Number one is the KISS rule, keep it simple, silly. So keep it simple, and what I mean by this is don't inject your style into the negotiation. So Simone is a bulldog negotiator.
Not
She
anymore.
needs to develop versatility so that she's not injecting her style, and rather, and what we're going to talk about later, is that she is gathering information to understand what negotiating style is going on the other side, and adapting and having versatility so that she can have better rapport with whoever she's negotiating with. This sometimes means having dual personalities, if you can imagine. You're dealing with a realtor over here who's amiable, and you've got a client over here who's a driver, like solid driver client. So now when you get on the phone with the realtor, hey, how's it going today? Hey, you know what? Such a beautiful day out today, isn't it? Oh my gosh, it's so mild, the weather's great. You do that with your client and it's like, hang up, right? So now you're dealing with two different personality styles. You have to understand what negotiating style they're doing. It becomes a lot, but as a realtor, if we can understand these things, you'll be amazed when you get on the phone next time when you're negotiating, how understanding these things. So keep it simple. And don't inject your personality style. Listen and understand to your buyer or to the seller's agent. Listen and understand what's going on. Ask questions, okay?
Your jobs as realtors between the two parties that you're representing is to negotiate the deal and represent your party, right? So that involves some give and take discussion about, you know, in more of a collaborative, cooperative way with the other realtor. You know, if you build an enemy with them right away, it's not going to go too well.
Exactly. And that's, you know, we often talk about rapport. And the misnomer with a lot of agents is that rapport involves stuff like this. Man, you got such a great handshake. I love your hair. Your suit's just like awesome. So, you know, what's going on? What's up? And this is like the chit chat small talk, right? And people think that in order to build rapport with their client, they have to have the chit-chat small talk, where the reality is rapport is just this feeling of comfort, and people feel comfortable when you are compatible. Have you ever heard that, you know, it just wasn't a good fit? So if you're negotiating and you're a very amiable agent and you've got a driver on the other side who's your client, and you try and inject your personality into that driver, there's not going to be a good fit. So there won't be good rapport no matter how much you compliment them. So the rapport comes from mirroring and matching, from compatibility with your personality styles. So that might mean for the amiable that you have to step it up, that you have to answer questions quickly and don't get into the details. It means for the analytical, you don't get into the statistics with every single person, right? So it's about understanding yourself as much as it is understanding the other person. I wrote communicate. So I wrote here, do you need to present your position? And I wrote that as a question. And I said, like, do you really need to present your position? And how many times, when I negotiate, just so everybody knows, I'm more of a driver style. Like, give me the information, give it quickly, I'm gonna relay it to my client, done, right? I got an offer yesterday. Hi, Pablo, just wanted to let you know about my client's position. They are this and they are that, and so don't get freaked out by the conditions because it's this and this and this and blah, 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 blah. And I just like skim. So there's the offer, open it up, right? barely even didn't read it. Like, I don't care about the details. And then she called me, I just sent it. Just wanted, you know. So, and I'll talk about this later, but the first thing you do is you call the other agent. And what you're doing is you're understanding what their style is so that you can have a smoother negotiation, okay? I don't want to call her because I know that she's going to talk my ear off about this offer. I get it. Your clients need this and this. I get it. Okay, let's move on, right? So I ask, when you're communicating, do you need to present your position? Do you need to present everything or just the facts, right? So understand where you need to present all the information or just the facts.
And also decide what you don't want to tell them or present to them.
Right.
There might be things that you don't ever need to even bring up.
And at the end of the day, as Greg said, you're really just facilitating the transaction between the two. So understanding, like somebody said, in order to get a deal done, there has to be some give and take. Well, does there? What if your client is the negotiating style where they are very accepting? Look, I need to get this home sold in the next 20 days. If I don't, the bank is coming. And as long as the offer is close, I'm taking it, right? They're an accepting style. Now you come in, like Cheryl said, I feel like I need to negotiate because that's what I'm getting my fees for, right? And you come in, no, we're countering at this, right? No, this is me. I'm the, I'm stereotype. So, then you get on the phone, no, we're not accepting that offer. We're negotiating, we're countering back at this. And they say, oh, thanks. You know what? Actually, my client just saw another house and they've decided to go for that one instead. Oh, no. I mean, we'll take it, right? That's too late now. So knowing what your client wants and what their style is, there might not have to be any back and forth or negotiating at all. And that's a win for your client and a win for the buyer as well.
It helps to go through scenarios with your client and say, okay, so are you comfortable with the fact that if we come back, that they may not counter at all?
100%.
Would you be okay with that?
There's always a risk, right?
No, I wouldn't be. Then we should change what we're going to do.
Yeah, Mitsu?
Do you leave some money behind on the table, knowing that you can negotiate more harder, even though after your client accepts it?
If my client wants to take the offer, and I know that they may be leaving money on the table, we accept the offer. You're representing your client. Do they want to counter back and maybe risk a little bit more money, maybe losing the clients?
Yeah, by doing that, you're not representing your client.
Right.
You're representing your own ego.
Exactly. And lastly, your job as the negotiator is to keep things moving forward in a transaction. Okay? Now, unless you're trying to stall the transaction for some reason or the negotiation for some reason, you want to stall it, but your job is to keep it moving forward. So responding, of course, quickly, dealing with things quickly, always moving things forward. What's another aspect of moving things forward? Has anybody encountered a negotiation that stalled, and why did it stall?
Lack of communication.
Lack of communication, for sure.
Got to an impasse.
Got to an impasse. How about this one? This is my favorite one. I submit an offer, I get a response back, thanks, we have no counter. Is that moving things forward? Not really, right? I mean, they leave it in our boat to now either come back and revise our offer upwards. So yesterday I got an offer, typical offer in this market, about 20% below list price. And I'm negotiating it right now. I've got it in my pocket. And instead of coming back with, you're out to lunch, come back with something better, we came back, we came down a little bit, right? Like, it might seem ridiculous. We're going to come down $5,000 on $1 million or something crazy, but I'm moving it forward. I'm stepping the needle even just a little bit towards them. And then I'm painting the picture that, look, you're going to need to be a lot closer, right? So always moving it forward. Don't be a deal killer, you guys. No matter what your client says, there's many times your client will say to you, Oh, I'm not answering that, right? Have you heard that one? My God, that's insulting. I'm not countering that. Tell them to go fly a kite if they think that I'm ever going to accept that offer. No way.
I'm not desperate.
I had that happen to me. I put an offer on a house,
Yeah.
$1,050,000. I
Yeah.
offered $1,025,000. They came back at $1,050,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, screw them. And I walked, and they called us a week later and asked, want to re-offer? And I said, nope, I'm buying another house.
It's not moving it forward, is it? Now, if they had come back
5,000 lower.
5,000 lower, you might have just said, you know what, we'll take it. And it would have been a done deal.
I would have countered that.
What did they end up selling the house for? Do you remember?
I have no idea. Don't care.
Right. Mark.
So what do you do when you're on the buying side and your clients continually make low offers? And you're trying to guide, and we've talked about this, I think, in this particular client in the past, but now they, so now you're making all these offers, you don't even get counters, because you're offending all the sellers, because they get offended. So what would you do in that situation where the listing agent is not moving it forward? They're not even coming down $1,000 to show any kind of sign that they want to negotiate with you.
Right. So now you're going to have to, again, now you're negotiating with two parties, right? So you're dealing with the seller's agent. You know what? I appreciate that. Before I go back to my client, throw me a bone. Give me like a little bit of a counteroffer. Can you talk to your client? Come back with something. Otherwise, my client's probably going to walk. Like, move the needle a little bit. Let's go here, right? Yeah. So now you're negotiating with the seller's agent. With your client, and we talked about this a little bit before, this comes down to the entire process from the initial buyer meeting and setting the expectation. My experience with the lowball buyers, and I've had numerous lowball buyers, is they make the most emotional decisions at the end of the day. I can't tell you how many times that I've been working with the, oh yeah, we're lowballing, we're gonna come in, I know the average home sells for 10% under list or whatever, I'm coming in 12% under on every one, and I'm not going, okay, well, let's get started, right? Couple of offers, lose, and then they're gonna walk into a house, happens every time. Wow, how much is this? It's $480,000. What? And how long has this been on the market? It's been 380 days. Wow, nobody's bought this yet? Have they ever reduced their price? No, they haven't. My God, this is a steal. I'm going, whatever, buddy. Okay, And then we should write an offer. And I go, okay, do you want to same kind of thing that you've been doing? No, I don't want to lose this one, right? So all of a sudden they're making an emotional connection to the house, and they end up with a great offer, and then they take the house. So patience a little bit with those people, but also setting the expectations from the beginning, right?
Do you think lowballers, we'll call them, do you think lowballers are mainly analytical? What do you guys think?
This particular one, the husband he's an engineer, he's analytical. 100%.
Yeah, they are.
Because like an amiable, they wouldn't do it, right?
No.
Because that'd be insulting.
Amiable wouldn't want to insult the person. So you're dealing with, but even a driver who does lowball, you're right, it's an analytical. Analyticals are the lowballers.
There's a big difference between money off the asking price and finding a house that's a good value.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the conversation you need to have with them. You just want to get a low price off the ask price, because that's not going to happen.
Right.
So if the price is house priced correctly, it's going to sell for close to that.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you want to find one that's good value, not that's cheap off the ask price.
Mhm.
The ask price means nothing.
It didn't matter. We did all that, Greg. It didn't
Yeah,
matter.
really.
It didn't matter.
Find a new client.
Well, somebody's going to sell them a house.
Well, refer them, that's another
Yeah.
gem, right? If you get the top clients, or if you have a listing that's coming up to expire, refer it to someone else. And warn them, like, don't give the junk clients to someone else, but it's a good opportunity, maybe they can
But
work
give your
magic.
clients to someone else.
So I'll share with you a story of that my coach shared with me of these 4 points, basically, in negotiating. And I love this story because I just think it really, I remember this story every time I'm negotiating, and I think about it because I really think it hammers it home. So this is like years and years ago, back in the days where you'd work duty leads at your desk, right? And maybe walk-ins would come in. And so he's working one day, and he had taken a listing a couple blocks away, and the sign's up, and he gets a call from his seller. And his seller's whispering, right? Mike, it's John. John, how are you doing? Shh, just keep it down. What's going on? There's somebody in my house. He says, call the police. No, I mean, I think it's a buyer. Okay, did you let him in? Yeah, they came and knocked on the door. They saw your sign and they knocked on my door and said, can they see the house? Okay, so what are they doing now? They're upstairs. I think they want to buy it. Okay, lock the door. Don't let them out, right? What should I do next, Mike? I'll be right over, right? So Mike gets in his car, drives a few blocks away, comes over. The two of them are sitting at the kitchen table already. It's like, great. So he sits down, he's got the buyer on one side, and he's got his client on the other side. So I understand that you saw the house and you'd like to buy the house. Is that right? Yeah, no, we really like it. We were driving by. This is exactly the neighborhood. This is what we want. And the seller, he looks at him, okay, well, you know, they like the house and they want to buy the house. We're asking $399 for the house, right? Mr. Buyer, what do you think about that? Buyer says, oh man, we can't afford $399. Well, what would you like to offer? Well, we can do $380. Someone, would you mind helping at the door? Somebody here. We can do, hi, come on in.
Hi, come right over here. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So we can do $380. $380, right? So he looks over to the seller. He goes, well, Mr. Seller, he can do $380. What do you think about that? $380, gosh, I couldn't sell that low. It's just too low. Well, what could you do? Well, we could do $395. $395, all right. Well, what do you think, Mr. Buyer? And this went back and forth a few times. They ended up at $390. So $390, we have a deal. Great. Shake hands. We have a deal. So you see how simple that was? What did the realtor do other than answering his phone, showing up, providing a little advice, moving it forward? Simple, right? He didn't have to inject his style into the negotiation or try and squeeze out a little extra, go, wait a second, we're going to talk behind closed doors. Yeah, I think you should do this, you know. I'm going to tell you what to do. We all feel as negotiators and representatives for our clients that we need to direct them on exactly what they need to be doing next. Where instead, the client is the one who should be in the driver's seat and saying what they need to do next. And if they have a question, they can ask us and we can give some advice, of course, right? Because we have experience and we negotiate, etc. What do you think I should do, right? We can give them some advice. So there's a story that I just love, and I think if you're really simple when you're negotiating, you're going to win a lot more negotiations. The question is, yes, go ahead.
So would that work for us, like having as a customer or agency relationship? In here, they both are in a customer relationship in a way.
Yeah, so now we get into the technicalities. I told you this was years ago before agency, right? There was none of that. It was just get a deal done. But nowadays, it can happen, and you can, as long as you're completely upfront with the other buyer, and you'd say, just so you know, I don't represent you. I'm representing my client. Would you like to have representation? No, I know what I want to do. Okay, great, you can do it, right? You can still double end in Alberta for now. We'll see how our regulator changes things in the future. But so the question is, what does your client want? So does anybody know, like just throw out ideas, a seller or a buyer, what do they want?
They want to move.
They want to move.
Preferably stress-free.
Stress-free, good one, yeah. What else do they want?
They want to get a good deal.
They want to get a good deal, right. Mitsu.
They need a professional real estate agent who's going to take them so smoothly.
Okay, so like some advice and guidance, right? Great, so I wrote down a few things here. They want the best price. They want the best terms. They want less hassle. And sometimes they just want to finish it, right? Just get it all done. How can you know what your client wants if you don't ask them what they want? So you really need to understand your client. Remember I said that your client could be, maybe they haven't even told you that the bank's knocking on their door and they are one step away from foreclosure. Okay, I follow Teslas, as you know, right? And so I often relate everything to cars. I tell Simone, it drives her nuts, but I relate every analogy goes to cars. So there was a gentleman who posted the other day, and he said, see you guys later. I've had to sell my Tesla. The economy's really done me under. And so the bank's going to take it back, and I'm out. And I said, well, no, stick around. He said, no, I couldn't. It's just too depressing. And somebody said, well, why didn't you just sell your car? And he said, well, I tried, but I couldn't get what I wanted for it, right? It was underwater. Now, if your client is facing bankruptcy and if they sell in the next 2 weeks, they can avoid bankruptcy, and they may need to somehow beg, borrow, or steal money in order to buy out the rest of their mortgage if they have to sell below the value. Don't you think that's important information to know? Wouldn't that change how you negotiate?
Yeah.
Big time, right? Now, you've got a client who does not need to sell, does not need to move, their motivation is super low. You know, they may be a tougher negotiator. He may be able to say, no, actually, you know what, they've asked for this amount. Maybe it's a builder, and they're in day one of sales, and they're all excited, and they're kind of cocky, and I mean, I deal with this all the time, the builders, right? When they first post something, it's like, oh no, everybody's gonna want this. So an offer comes in day one, how much do they negotiate? We'll wait for the next one, right? The list price is the list price, they're tough, right? The motivation can change throughout the relationship. Make sure you understand the motivation of your clients. I just said, have you asked your client what's important to them in a negotiation?
And what's registered on title can change.
Yeah.
Right? So if you ever had a long-term listing and all of a sudden they go and get a line of credit and now that's secured, and all of a sudden they're actually underwater on the property.
Priscilla, what's our policy on pulling title on listings?
Oh, we get a new one every 6 months.
Yeah. So every 3 to 6 months we pull title?
Especially if we feel like maybe it's kind of in jeopardy to start, right? You gotta make
Sometimes they change owners. Like they sold it to a buddy of theirs to somehow get a new mortgage or something, and you're going, what happened here? You're not even the seller anymore. I've been calling you for price reductions. Okay. So a seller, and this is more for a seller when they get an offer, but it also can work with a buyer when they get a counter offer. They always have 3 options, and it's important that you relay all 3 options to them every single time you present an offer or a counter offer. Option number 1 is that they accept the contract as written. It's always an option. Greg mentioned this at the beginning about how maybe accepting the offer as written is the best way to do it, because if they don't, there could be a risk of counter offering, right? So number 2 option is they can reject the offer. We've heard that one. Thanks, my clients decided to reject the offer, we don't have a counter offer. And as I've instructed, please don't do that anymore. It doesn't move things forward. But it's an option for them. If they want to just outline, reject the offer. Number 3, anybody guess what number 3 is? Counter offer, right? Now, when you're counter offering, it's important to know, and I word it like this: we can reject the offer and present a counter offer. Anytime you present a counter offer to people, it is a rejection of the current offer and a presentation of a new offer. And anytime you reject an offer, there is risk that that offer collapses, right? So when I present an offer to people, I say, congratulations, Nitsu, we've received an offer on your property. The price and the terms are like this. We have 3 options. Can I go over those with you now? Sure. Number 1, we can accept this offer as written, and we're done. Number 2, we can outline reject this offer. Or number 3, and you see how like number 2, I just did it quickly. I'm like, all right, we could do this. Or number 3, we can reject this offer and present the offer, or present a counter offer back to the sellers or buyers. Now, which would you like to do? And I ask them. And you'd be surprised how many times they just go, I'm happy with it. I'm good with it. Okay, so you'd like to accept this offer as is, we don't want a counter offer at all? Nope, I'm good with it. Great. Do you need to inject your own personality? Do you need to inject your style? Do you need to negotiate? I think we could get more if we go back, right? Cut it out. Danger zone. Always present with them the risks that are involved with every single move that they do. Here's a great quote that I love here. The most difficult thing in a negotiation, almost, is making sure that you strip it of the emotion and deal with the facts. Nitsu, you mentioned about emotions, right? Yeah. So emotions play a huge part in negotiating, good and bad. Let's talk about kind of more the negatives. when I ask what's at stake, I mean, what's at stake for you as a negotiator? What happens if you don't negotiate this to a win? Like if you don't negotiate a deal, what happens?
Of course, you risk losing the client.
Risk losing the client.
Right. Sometimes ego takes a hit too.
Ego might take a hit, for sure.
Yeah.
What else? What do we rely on as realtors?
Money.
Money. So if you don't negotiate something, we agree, right? You're not going to get paid. So that's at stake. Now, let me ask you this. If you are a hostage negotiator, or there is a, you're one of these like the police negotiator guys, and there's a guy up on a ledge, on the edge, and he's like, I'm going to jump. And you're the negotiator. What's at stake if you lose that negotiation?
His life.
The guy's life, right? That's pretty serious. Like you really want to get that negotiation right? That's why they're professional negotiators. So think about what's at stake for you when you're negotiating a contract and never let it get in the way of the negotiation.
Commission.
Don't let your money get in the way. Don't let your ego get in the way of this negotiation, okay? And what happens is that as you get emotional about the transaction, you're not going to make good choices. So emotional decisions never lead to good choices. This is really in life, but okay.
You know that one agent that we won't mention his name?
Mm-hmm.
that used to operate down the hall from us. But he used to, I remember him yelling, like he would swear and yell, and his office was down the hall. And
Every negotiation.
One of his classic lines was, get a hold of your client.
Yeah.
Right? Like he'd be yelling at the agent going, get a hold of your client.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
I finally, it's so funny because I finally got to negotiate against him. I had a buyer, he had a listing, and I brought my buyer. I knew exactly what was going on. He was our old realtor. I mean, I knew him fairly well.
And he's an amazing person.
And he's an amazing person. But for some reason, the guy flies off the handle in every negotiation, no matter what. We bring the offer, Pablo, what the F are you doing? He's swearing at me. You got to get a hold of your client. You need to bring them up. Talk about like the old boys club, right? And so I kept the emotions completely out of it. I just went, well, my client actually presented this offer. That's what I've got. I didn't apologize either. It's not like, sorry, this is what my client says. Well, my client says this. I almost said his name. My client says this. I'm going to slip. I know it, right? So anyways, keep the emotions to a minimum, okay? Your job in the transaction is to keep the emotions to an absolute minimum. Your client is going to be emotional.
Yeah.
Mark, let me ask you. We recently...
Yes.
Now, tell me, is it different? Do you mind me talking about this a little bit?
I was probably
Okay.
talking about it anyway.
Is it different when you're negotiating your own house compared to when you're negotiating for a client?
Yes, and I mean, so I got married in July. My wife has owned this house for 17 years. So I'll just tell you guys, like her husband passed away 5 years ago, so there's all those memories wrapped up in it. The girls never lived in another house, basically. So it was more, yeah, it's way more stressful than you think.
Yeah.
And if you haven't sold a house recently, I encourage you to do it because it really does give you an appreciation. And Pablo practices what he preaches. I mean, it was zero emotion. Here's what they're at. What do you guys want to do? Here's what I recommend. Whatever. So it is 100% more emotional than even I thought as a person. That's not as tied into the house as my wife is. So just even at that base level, being there 3 months or 6 months or whatever, however long it's been, yeah, it's extremely emotional.
Different, right?
Stressful.
How different would it have been if I was emotional with you?
It
Like,
would have been extremely.
It would have elevated it all, right?
Yeah.
When you get one person in a room yelling and the other person in the room is not yelling, it deflates pretty quickly.
Yeah.
When somebody starts yelling and you start yelling, what happens? It keeps going up, right? The emotions go together. Your job is to keep the emotions low in the transaction. I could hear the emotions on the phone.
Yeah.
right? And I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I could hear the emotions. I could hear that. And there was a little bit of the tell those guys to go fly a kite, right? There was a little bit of that, and I could hear that.
Yeah.
But my job is to stay calm and neutral throughout the entire negotiation.
And we ended up in a good place. I mean,
Sure.
we were very close to exactly what our bottom line was, and we gave a little bit, and they came and up a little bit, and it was good.
Yeah.
Just needed them to remove conditions now. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. So keep your emotions to a minimum. Now, when would be,
I was gonna say on that too, that in all sorts of realms of activity, I mean, I'm a more emotional person,
Yeah.
but when it comes to certain things, you know, I learned years and years ago, if you're the calm one,
Yeah.
the calm one, because your opponent or adversary or whatever it is, you know, after a while they realize they look like an idiot.
Right.
Ranting or raving or basically being an asshole. Isn't gonna win it.
I'm going to tie this into what I really said at the very beginning, which is that this is not just about improving your real estate sales, but about improving your life. A lot of the skills that we talk about, you translate that to dealing with your kids, dealing with your spouse, dealing with anything. There's negotiating happening all over the place. If you maintain a level head, as I've learned through life, you have a lot less stress, and you can go through your life with calm and peace, and you don't get the peaks of stress through your day, and that, I mean, it really makes a big difference on your emotional state. So let's brainstorm, when would it be okay to use emotion in a negotiation? Crickets. When would it be okay to use emotion in a negotiation?
When you get paid.
Yeah. Woo! I got paid.
Would you get a better offer than expected?
You get a better offer, sure, you could be excited,
Yeah.
and maybe you kind of elevate a little bit.
Yeah.
Guess what? We got a great offer, right? And you're tying into the emotions.
Now your client's going, oh, that's a great offer?
Yeah. And not to confuse energy and enthusiasm with emotions. Okay?
Yeah.
So energy and enthusiasm, yeah, you have to have that because that's contagious and that's a good thing. But that's not an emotion, right? Now, tying into the emotions, Simone always jokes with me. You always know what you want to say. You might as well just say it anyways. He's asking. But here's an example I came up with, right? You're at the negotiating table and you're negotiating, right? And you're having a hard time bringing it together. You've tried the compromise, you've tried the split in the middle, it's just not working. Now you go back to your client and you say, you know what? Let's talk about this house. Okay? You mentioned to me when we first met, you wanted a place that had 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and had a big yard, right? Does this have a big yard and the 3 bedroom, 2 bath? It sure does, right? Now, what about that yard? Have you seen a yard like that? Can you imagine your kids playing in that yard, right? I'm tying into the emotions of my client to help them tip over the edge. Now, we could continue to look. We could give this up. It's $5,000, right? We could give this up and we could continue looking and doing more searching and more showings and on and on and on. And hopefully maybe we find a similar house than this for $5,000 less. Do you see how I'm tying into the emotions? It's like, I don't want that pain. I do want this pleasure. Can I get them to come
Basically,
the extra?
you get them to realize that the $10,000 you're trying to save doesn't really matter
Right.
to you in your life.
At the end of the day, that's not going to matter. What does matter? The yard and seeing your kids play there, etc. So now I can try and use emotion to close the deal. And this is a place. And is that manipulative? No, I don't think so. You're reminding your client of what the emotional state they were when they were looking for a home.
It's being realistic.
It's being realistic, little salesy, but realistic.
It is. And
Right.
When you think about it, you know, in an era of $60,000 houses, $5,000 makes a big difference.
Sure.
In today's market, who gives a damn?
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people get hung up on that, but I bet you it's more than I'd like to imagine.
How long are you going to live here? 10 years? Let's amortize it.
So the question then isn't, is this true? Like, it shouldn't really have anything to do with your emotions, but generating emotion is fine, right?
That's
like,
right.
I'm thinking of my Italian client, right? The one that we just, and how we used to just yell at each other on the phone because that's what he would do.
Yeah.
And so that was his emotions. That wasn't our other scenario with the other agent who would yell at people.
That's the same as versatility as we were kind of just talking about. So the versatility, now this is, again, getting heated with a client is not necessarily emotions. And there's a time and a place. So I had a negotiation a few days ago where I was dealing with a Eastern European realtor, very emotional. And very emotional, I mean very boisterous. She was a driver expressive, really kind of like emotion. It seems emotional, right? So I was dealing with that, remember the realtor to realtor to negotiation. Well, she got like pissy and heated on the phone, right? And I told Simone, this is the first time in 10 years I've ever yelled at another realtor. One of the things we practice in the personality styles is mirroring and matching, okay? How to establish rapport by mirroring and matching. If I just bowled over with her, she would have walked all over me. So I got on the phone with her. I said, hell no, we're not doing that. You know what? If you think that this and this and this and this, and I just like tore into her. And we were yelling on the phone, the two of us. It was like an Italian dinner, right? We were like, "Rah!" And then it diffused. And now we're like best friends. I mean, we talk to each other for an hour on the phone. We laugh and we have a good time. We don't ever talk about that, right? But that was part of the negotiation because you have to know sometimes when to adapt your personality in order to establish the rapport with, but it wasn't emotions, right? I was a little emotional afterwards, I gotta say. I phoned her up, I'm like, my heart's racing, and I'm like, I don't know if I did the right thing. I mean, I was yelling at an agent. I don't know if that's the right thing for my client.
But you weren't disrespectful, you were just in that state.
I used, yeah, that's right. I remember, because people are gonna laugh at me for this, but as a child, I actually did look up to Donald Trump. I thought, this guy's like gold-lined everything. He's a billionaire. He's a deal maker. And I was like, oh man, look at that. Right now, of course, it's gone the other way. But I was reading one of the books about negotiating as a teenager, and it was Donald Trump's, and I can't remember his name, but his right-hand man, and his name is like George Ross or George something or other, right? And he was on The Apprentice in the first few seasons. And he was talking about when they were negotiating for a tower in downtown New York, and they were going to convert it from one thing to the other, you know, that's what they do. And they had their price in mind. It was like $30 million was going to be their price that they wanted to get it at, right? And they walked in there, and one of the rules of negotiating is you never start, right? You always want to be the second one in. You want to let them come up with their first move, if you will. So he goes into the meeting, all these people in the boardroom in Manhattan, and okay, we're interested in buying it. You know, and the other party goes, okay, you know what? We'll sell it to you, but we're not taking anything under 28 million. Okay, what's your reaction? What's your reaction? It's like, you're not willing to pay any more than 30. They say, we'll take 28.
28 million?
That's what he did.
Crazy.
He goes, what?
I'm out of here.
28? Huh. Well, we're gonna have to talk. And he exits, goes and talks to Donald. Comes back. 26, not a dime over that, right? This is negotiation, right? So never make the first move, never show your cards, right? This is basic negotiation. I don't really get into that because that's not how we negotiate as realtors. It's a little different, right? So we have to understand some of those things. But I love the fact that his reaction was right away, instantly, without even a blink. What? I've used that before, by the way. It's great.
About the emotion too, there's an example.
Yep.
I can't name the company, but a large oil and gas company some years ago wanted to play with the big boys and get SAP.
Okay.
If anybody knows what SAP is.
Yeah.
And so they had the SAP people in there for several months reviewing everything, doing the audit, doing the process, all the stuff that they did. The day comes when they have to present to the C-level guys. And they walk in and they're all excited about, well, when can we start? And the SAP guys said, you're not ready, turn around and walked out. And they stopped and they wouldn't let them leave. They begged them to stay.
Yeah.
And it was a debacle. But it was, they preyed on their ego.
Totally, right?
Huge. And that's tens of billions of dollars.
Huge contracts.
And these are not chumps. These are not low-level people. These
Right.
That's
fun. So during a negotiation, it'd be wise not to take anything personally. If you leave personalities out of it, you're going to be able to see the opportunities much more objectively. So multiple offers. Now, this is where it gets fun. I really enjoy multiple offers. To me, it's one of the funnest parts of real estate, and it's one of the most stressful too, and I kind of always like a challenge. Most difficult multiple offer, I mean, I've had multiple offers where there's like 6 or 7 offers or 8. Those are tough, but the toughest one I had was about 2 or 3 years ago. It was up on Crescent Road. Do you know where that is? Like overlooking downtown. And I have a high net worth client, and he wants to build the biggest, baddest house in the city. He wants the best. And he's looking for a lot. And we're looking in Elbow Park, we're looking in Rideau, we're looking, you know, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. So then this lot comes up on the corner on Crescent Road, the best lot on Crescent Road by far, mountain views, downtown views, everything. And he goes, I want to buy it. I said, great. There's 2 or 3 other offers right now. We're in competing offers. He goes, no, but I want to buy this one and the one next door to make 100 feet of frontage, and I'm going to knock them both down, and I'm going to build the biggest house I can get, right? I said, well, okay, so now I've got one house, if you can imagine, that the sellers had it on the market for, I think, almost a year, and it's listed at 2.3 million. And then we've got the other one that came on at 2.1 million, but it's in competing. And he says, I do not want to buy both. So make sure I don't buy both.
No, he wants only both.
Oh, sorry. I do want to buy both.
Yeah.
Make sure I don't end up with one.
He doesn't want to end up with one.
If I end up with one, you're dead,
You're dead,
right?
yeah.
And
No pressure.
so I'm going, okay, how do we work this? It was like, remember this? Like we stopped everything. We got everything, no phone calls, no nothing. It was all our heads together. How can we negotiate this? So I had to make an unconditional offer. Of course, it's like there's other builders who wanted this lot, of course, on the corner. It's a trophy lot. And we had to make an unconditional offer. But I didn't want to complicate my deal by adding a condition of getting the one next door. But I didn't want another builder to snag up the one next door or for the, you know, so how do I do this? I mean, it was a ballet of timing and negotiating that had to happen. It was like choreographed, and one maybe didn't know about the other, and I had to kind of play the two, but we ended up getting them. And if you go to Crescent Road right now, it's in the final stages of construction. It looks like a monster house on the corner. And that was the most difficult negotiation that I ever had. It took the entire day. Fun fact though, the commissions from that was like 70 grand. So it was worth it. It was a really good day.
So what'd you do?
Well, what I ended up doing is I wrote an unconditional offer on the corner lot, okay? And then I wrote an unconditional offer on the second lot. We wrote almost at list price for the second one, so I know I'd get it. We wrote way over on the other one. It was listed at $2,050,000, and I think we went at 2.2. And my client was like, should we go higher? And I was, this is where experience really comes into play. Finding out who the other agents were, who the other builders were. I was asking a lot of questions. I remember how I called that realtor, and I knew I had never dealt with her before, but she was a older woman realtor, very well respected.
Friends of the family.
Friends of the family. And so I was so sweet with her. We were like, I was the son she never had. And I made sure that if she was presenting offers, that at least I know it's going to go well with this guy because I've had a good rapport with him on the phone. So I knew I had to have a good rapport. The second house, I didn't care about the rapport with that one. And we had to time it so that I would respond or be able to withdraw an offer on the second one until I knew what happened on the first one. And the details are a little foggy to this day, but it had to do with that, right?
The second one, the one that had been listed for a long time, I think we had a condition of finance or home inspection. I think it's home inspection.
Yeah, you're right. We had
So
one.
we stalled that one, but then we were able to, once we knew that one was secured, then.
I think I had them sign it to me so that we were the final signing. And then I used the delay tactic, right? And I just delayed the negotiation, stopped the talking or whatever. They had no idea that we were also negotiating over here, right? Otherwise, they would go, hey, let's boost up the price over here. So it was a delicate balance.
Final signing.
Yeah.
So they signed everything, sent it to you.
Yes.
And you had the option to reject,
Correct. Because if we don't sign back the final signatures,
even though you
it's a
presented
dead
the
deal.
original offer.
Yep.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
played
That's right.
with who was signing.
Yeah, and the original, you're right, the original offer had a condition, but for a day or two. It was like a short condition so that we had,
Like the next morning, we put a condition just to
yeah.
hold it.
It was really tricky, but we ended up getting it. It was amazing days and so much fun.
House loaded deodorant, though.
Oh yeah, we sweat.
The other thing I'll just bring up,
Yeah.
that this could be a topic for later, but we also have had times where we've rescinded offers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever have something that is, it's out for signing, so you've negotiated, it's now, your clients have signed, it's out for final signing.
Yeah.
We have a form, it's to rescind that, right? Because what happened once is we did final signing on our side, we sent the offer to the other agent, and they're in the midst of getting final signatures.
And we got a better
And
offer.
we got a better offer that came in. So we quickly send a rescind.
And other realtors don't know this. Well, not every realtor knows this. And I get, no, but we accepted. My client's already signed. I said, but you haven't delivered the contract back. And unless it's delivered, and by delivered, do you know what that means?
Delivered, placed in their hands.
No, delivered means as soon as you send it to them. Okay? And legally in contract law, if it's sent and it goes to your spam or junk mail, it's already delivered.
Yeah.
So that's considered done. If you can show in your outbox that the delivered time was this, that was delivered, that's
And
done.
It also depends on the form that was given to you. So if it was actually handed to you, an email would not work. It's in the form, from my understanding.
Depends what's on the contract,
Yeah, but
right?
if I walk up to you and I hand you the contract, it's hand delivered.
Yeah,
I need it hand delivered back to you.
No.
not in our,
So that was
In our
No.
forms, that's got fixed.
Does that change now?
yeah, because our forms outline all the various acceptable forms of communication.
And you can choose any one.
So you can choose any of those.
But I thought it says in there still the form that it was delivered to you in.
No.
No. That
No,
was,
always goes by what the
No.
contract says.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
not anymore.
you can even take a
got stuck in
picture
that one
and
time.
text it to them, and that's considered delivered. Okay, so any
Because
format
we got
back.
stuck in that before with that
Yeah.
happening, so now it's whatever. If you hand it to me, I make darn sure that I hand it back because we got stung with that once.
Right.
Right.
Because we emailed it and they said, no, I wanted it hand delivered. That's how we handed it to you.
Yeah.
And
No.
No,
yeah.
in the
Even
contract,
though it was
it's
in the
yeah,
time.
They change all the time.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing is, what happened on the agent that we put in the rescission, that agent was out for dinner. And they didn't take the time to get
Yeah.
their client to sign.
Oh.
So when you get something to get your client to sign, get them
Uh,
signing. and-
If I recall, Simone, that particular situation, they had it with them.
Oh, yeah.
They just hadn't. They said, "I'll deliver it after dinner,"
Yeah.
and they took an hour and a half, and they had to explain to their client why they lost that deal. Oh, I couldn't imagine how that conversation
Also,
went.
be careful of the version of the contract that
Yes.
they're using. They may use an older contract that doesn't
Sure.
have a clause in it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in multiple offers, the seller has numerous, or if you're representing the seller, you've got a few different options. Of course, you get all the offers and you accept the best offer, right? And of course, you're going to notify the other agents. We have another offer. We have 3 offers now. Cheryl's got an offer in. Curtis has an offer in. And then we go back to everybody. Is this your best offer? Yes. Okay. Great. Present all the offers to your client. Accept the one with the best price and terms, right? That's number one option that they have. Number 2 is you take all the offers in and push them all back, give them to Curtis and Nitsu and Cheryl, etc., and say, we'd like you to have the opportunity, as I always say, we have the opportunity to revise your offer and come up with an even better offer. That's option number 2. What happens, remember the very first thing when there was like, you can accept this offer, you can reject, and then remember that? This increases what? The risk. So now you're adding a layer of risk. All 3 you go, yeah, you know what? We're done with this. We don't like this.
Yeah.
We're done.
We'll do that too with multiple offers. I say, no, I don't want to get it anymore.
Yeah.
Especially in this kind of market, because we actually, my wife and I, prior to doing the deal in the house or that we've offered on now,
Yeah.
we were in multiple offers in Chaparral.
Oh, yeah.
And once the other side found out there was multiples, they just backed out.
Yep. So be very careful, especially in this offer. I talk to Vancouver agents all the time. They've had a hot market there for years. They're so used to like multiple offers, the ego goes up and they're like, yeah, come up with something better and it's got to be 30% over list or we're not looking at it, blah, 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 right? That hasn't happened here for years and years, but that's option 2 is you push the ball back and revise. Number 3 is you can work with one offer and you can counter that offer.
Can you counter multiple offers?
No.
What if there's all still a condition pending on your side?
Nah. Yeah, you kind of can verbally, and the seller has the right. So realtors have the code of ethics, and there's certain things that we can and can't do as realtors. A seller is allowed to stand in front of the lawn with all the other realtors and go, okay, I got 680 over here, who'll give me 690? 690, okay, who'll give me 700? Like auction, basically. They're allowed to do that. As realtors, we're not allowed to do that.
If your seller tells you you can.
If your seller instructs you to do so, now you have to follow your seller's instruction, and yes, you can. Now, you have to be very careful when if you're going to be countering 2 different offers. You actually don't want to have it written on paper because you don't want to get stuck with anything in writing.
No, I want whenever I've done that, I've had the sellers acknowledge that they
Yes.
told me that this is what they want.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it can backfire.
Yep, exactly. And I get this with builders a lot where they're like, go back to both of them and offer this and this. And I'm like, oh, all right. So yeah, you can do that, but typically it's counter one of the offers, to work with the one that you think is going to be the best, that you can maybe push them up a little bit. So countering one offer is an option.
Have you done, what I usually do is there'll be one offer that we're going to counter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the last one I call. So I call this guy, thank you very much for your offer, but we've chosen another one to work with. Thank you very much. No, we haven't accepted it yet. I haven't spoke to them and letting everybody know that which one.
Sure.
So then they've got 10 or 15 minutes to change. Oh yeah, if you'd like to give another one, great. And that's what I tell everybody. Then I get to the last one. And now it's like, oh, well, we've accepted it. We're looking at another offer because this guy came back.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So
it takes a long time.
Yeah.
It can take like 10 hours to go through, like 12.
So did everybody hear that, or do you want me to go over that again? So this is a tactic. I'll just go back a slide here. So when you're dealing with the seller and you get 3 offers, and you've said, you know what, the best one so far is offer number 3, so I'm going to go back to offer number 1 and 2 and say, you know, Mark, thank you very much for the offer. We've decided not to accept your offer. And of course, Mark's going to say what? Well, have you signed it in writing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? No, I haven't signed it in writing, but we're about to do so. Oh, well, let me talk to my client really quick. I'll get back to you. Right? So this is a way of almost countering the other one and giving them an opportunity to revise. And you go back to number 2 and you say the same thing. And then by the time you get back to number 3 that you were going to accept, you've got 2 better offers coming back at you, right? And you go back to number 3, say, you know what, we were going to accept, but offer 1 and 2 just up their price or terms. Would you like to revise? And again, careful everything that you do, because you always risk losing everybody.
Document it as you do it.
Document it as you do it, yeah.
I don't think I've ever told them that we had another one coming in, just thank you very much, because you don't have to.
Right, you don't have to.
You don't have to just thank you
Yeah.
very much. If you'd like to submit, yes, we haven't, finished negotiating on the one that we're working on. And then, but you can be there a long time and have a big piece of paper.
Yep.
Because you write down people's names and what they're.
This is the most important time to talk to your manager. If you have multiple offers and you're getting into anything that's not, I'm accepting or just doing this, talk to your manager and make sure you're not offside, because there are so many subtleties that could come back to bite you. Other agents, they get really vindictive when they lose, and they might go, you know what, that guy was totally offside and breaking the rules. Talk to your manager if there's any subtleties to this, okay? Let's move on. So when representing a buyer, you've got a few options that could help you. Number 1 is you might want to offer in person. Has anybody presented an offer in person before? Simone, you have, Nitsu, good, a couple people. I'll never forget an offer I presented in person, and this was like in an up market, and great house, my clients loved it. It was in Parkdale, and I went to present in person. It was me and another agent, and the other agent was waiting in their vehicle, and it was nerve-wracking. It was winter, and we were sitting out in our vehicles, and what I did, and it's in my second point here, so write a letter. Has anybody had a client write a letter as a buyer? Yeah, a few people, right? And this can work, okay? Clients actually really enjoy doing this too, by the way. When I ask them to do this, they're like, we'd love to, and they give you this really nice hand-scripted letter, and it's like our kids live in the, you know, we need to go to this school, and we love the neighborhood, my parents live in, you know, so it can get a little bit of an emotional connection when you're negotiating. So what I did is I prepared the absolute best offer that my clients were willing to put forward. It was like, when I'm negotiating with the buyer, I always say, put forth your absolute best foot. Like, if it sells for $1,000 more to someone else, are you gonna come back to me and go, oh my God, 1,000, I would have given $1,000, right? So you want that number that is like uncomfortable, not if I get it for this, I'm pretty happy, right? This is like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable at this number. And that's where they're going to write their offer, okay? And then, so, you know, I will sometimes write the letter, have them write the letter. I prepared the nicest little package, right? I have the folder, I've got the nice paper clip on there, I've got the contract and the document filled out perfectly, I triple checked everything, I've got my client signatures and everything all done, I've got circle stamps, the little red circle stamps and the sign here tabs, it's all presented really well, okay? All of this matters when you're in multiple offers, because when they see you, and I came in professionally dressed and I sat with the sellers, I said, you know, I'm not going to tell you a whole bunch about this, but there's a really nice letter from my clients. Again, I'm not injecting my style into this at all. Just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. We'd love to win this multiple offer. And if you have any questions, I'm in the car. If we need to revise or change anything that's not to your liking, my clients are with me and we can change it in a heartbeat, okay? And we won. Like, we got the house. They love the house. It's a great place. So these are the kind of things that you can do. And I'll write, this is make it your best. Okay? And the last one I'm going to put up here as well, which is solid paperwork. So all of those things added up to a good offer. And at the end of the day, if your offer's 20 grand less, you're probably going to lose. So it's going to be the price at the end of the day. Price and terms are always the most important. Those other things are going to be little extras that can help tip the scales when they're deciding. And I do have sellers that will say, like, I chose you because I liked your clients better, or I liked, you know, the way that it was presented better. And yes, the other one was a little bit more, but it was more emotional for them. Again, if you can understand, if they're more amiable, they'll sell to you because they like that better, right?
And if you look more professional, they've got more confidence
Mm-hmm.
in your offer.
Yeah.
Like, I had an agent one time presented, and it was like, my client's like, no,
Yeah.
you're a lawyer. She actually said my clients are lawyers, and my client went, oh, and they just shut right off.
Yep.
They wouldn't sell to them. They said, no, I'm not done with lawyers.
Careful how much you reveal, right?
And I'm like, that was a big point
Yeah.
for me, because I've had lawyers as clients, and I'm like, no, we're not gonna tell them you're a lawyer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what happened, they shut us down. They did not
Yes.
want to sell to lawyers.
Good point. So how much are you revealing about your clients, especially without them knowing,
And if you're
right?
not nice
You
to
told them I
yourself-
was a lawyer, right? Could you imagine? They come and knock on the door later and talk to the seller. So how come you didn't pick us? Well, your client said, your realtor said that you're a lawyer and we really didn't want to deal with that. He told you that I was a lawyer? Oh my gosh. That's like, that is, that a lawyer's going to sue you, right? Yeah. What's the speed dial for REX, right? So these are all things that can help you. Now, another thing I'm going to layer on here, which is that when you're prompting someone who, look, we're in a multiple offer situation, right? And you got to put your best foot forward. So the list price is $599, okay? And they're going to be a little bit lost. If they're not used to competing offers, and I've dealt with multiple competing offers, how can I prompt them to think bigger, to think more? They're thinking $599, maybe I could get the house for $580. Okay, stretch, $590, right? So I will instill some NLP, if you will, some neuro-linguistic programming, and I'll throw in some subtleties to guide my client. I'm not going to tell them you need to come in at 620, because if I tell them 620 and they win, they'll blame me for overpaying for the house, right? Because it was my choice, not theirs. So I need them to come up with the price and everything else. I'll usually guide them on the possession date and terms. I said, if we can do anything on the terms, we should do that, right? But then the price. So I'll usually use things like this. So now you have to pick the highest price that you feel most comfortable. Remember I said, like, if you lose it for $1,000, can you sleep at night knowing that you lost the house for over $1,000? pick that price that's really uncomfortable, and whether it's 620 or 630 something, just pick that price. So you see how I kind of just threw in a price? I didn't say pick that price, but I chose a price that was high. And now I want them thinking, oh my gosh, he said like 620, 630. Ooh, that's uncomfortable. Now they've got that little rush and their sweat glands have opened a little bit and they're going, man, like, that's a lot higher than I thought, right? But now they're thinking, well, if he said 610 or 620, 630, could we go 620? Let's go 622. So now in their heads, they're coming up with the price. I didn't tell them what the price was. Now I feel comfortable that they chose that price, okay? So I plant the seed with a number or a range as a, for instance.
But a lot of times they want you to tell them.
Sure.
Like they're gonna
I go,
push.
You're gonna have to come up with the price that you feel the most comfortable with, okay? I'm not gonna tell them the price, because again, they're gonna come to me and say, you chose that price. Or they lose.
They lose it.
And you told us that 620 would get it. No, I didn't say 620 would get it. I said, write it at 620.
What's your best offer? What's your
Right? So again, what's the best? That way if they lose, they go, well, we put our best foot forward. Thank you very much, right? They're gonna thank me, not hate me, because I picked the number that made them lose, okay? Oh, my tips. Okay, we're almost done. So number one tip is remove your ego from the negotiation. Ego kills negotiations, right? It doesn't establish rapport. It makes you look like a jerk. Remove your ego from everything if you can. You're not as good as you think you are, believe me, everybody. So remove your ego, okay? Quit having to be right with everything I wrote. Number two, I said your reputation matters. We hinted on this a little bit. This is a business where we deal with realtors over and over and over. You're negotiating over and over and over again. If you're in Mexico and you buy some sunglasses and you got that guy to below his cost and he's pissed off and he throws the sunglasses at you and you throw a few pesos at him, and like you never have to deal with that guy again. If you show up again and try and negotiate, that guy is going to be like, yeah, get out. I don't want to deal with you, right? In this business, we have to deal with these realtors over and over and over. Don't burn your bridges. Your reputation does matter. Stay organized. Now, I have a negotiation log, and this is what I use. Maybe Simone will I don't have one for everyone, I don't think, so I'll, again, email this to you, or Priscilla will email this to you. Thank you, Priscilla. It's an agent upgrade negotiation log, so I upgraded it to take out my information. This is something that I use for every single negotiation. So I have one in my pocket right now, just to show you a little bit of kind of what it looks like. So as I'm negotiating a contract, I do one of these for every single offer that comes up, okay? Priscilla, bless her heart, she actually fills out all the stuff on the top there. It's a fillable PDF in the original version, which I'll send to you guys. And in there, I've got the client's information, the address, the date of the offer at the top. I've got all of their contact information, so if I'm in a pinch, I'm at a presentation, say, and right after I've got to call my client, and they're not in my contacts already, I don't have to go scoundering through my CRM to find my client's information. It's just right there, I can dial it, right? And then I've got the realtor that I'm dealing with, and their brokerage, and I've got their cell number and their email. So again, if I have to DocuSign something and then send it quickly to the other agent, I can have it there already. I put the list price and any notes. So then I put the offer, whatever the offer is. So in this case, $1,198,000 and the offer is $1 million even. There's my 20% under. And the closing date that they want. And then any notes. So in here I put condition dates, the alarm contract, anything else that I need to kind of think about or know about or note in there, any special conditions or, just anything weird in there. And then when I call the seller and I say, well, we got an offer of this, what's our counter offer? I write down the counter offer under the seller, closing date, these are the important things, and then any notes that I have to talk to the realtor, right? And you might think, well, okay, I kind of do this, I just do this on a little doodle pad and I have my own little system. I've gotten used to, I have a personality where I forget things very easily. And what happened, and the reason for this form is I was negotiating 2 or 3 offers at the same time. And I kept calling Mark Philibert and saying, well, our counter offer is $680. He goes, that's great because we're listed at $899, so we'll take it. Oh, shoot, no, wrong deal, hang on. You know, and so I was mixing up everything. And so then I got lazy and you start texting. So you've got a text thread and you're trying to go back and forth on the text threads and it's not effective. It was a nightmare. So I started doing this. Inevitably, I'm going to have another offer come in on the same day. I've got everything organized. And the bonus to this is, and you can see there's like a little check boxes at the bottom there. So as the deposit by bank draft, we have that on there. You know, the lawyer, et cetera. So the condition dates. So all the stuff that I need to remember is on here. And if we have a listing before getting an offer, in the notes section at the bottom, there's little reminders. Reminder to ensure that the TV and the mount in the basement are included in the sale. The hot tub is to be excluded. So I put those notes in there so that when I'm negotiating, I say, and when we do this, we're gonna have to remember these things, okay? So this is how we remember everything in a negotiation. The added benefit, and this is, I can't stress this enough, is one day your client comes back to you and says, I never said that. You say, yes, you did, I actually wrote it down. And then at the end of the negotiation, I scan every one and I send it to Priscilla. She files it in with the file electronically, and I've got a log of everything that was said and happened in that negotiation right here, because I write down everything, right? So stay organized.
And those negotiation logs, correct me if I'm wrong, Priscilla, they're created once the listing comes into the office. So even before the offer, so
Yeah, it's part of our listing. Yeah.
Right? So create the negotiation log, so the only thing you need to fill in now is the other agent's information. And then it sits there in your Dropbox or whatever, and so you know that that house is gonna get sold.
Right.
And he doesn't like manifest.
What's the difference? I do. So what's the difference between an experienced negotiator and a novice negotiator? Nitsu, any differences that you can think of? Like what would make an experienced negotiator any different than a novice negotiator?
Like, experienced negotiator knows the power of the other agents. Maybe he follows the collaboration approach, you know, getting along with the other agent to get the deal done through
Right.
easier and quicker.
There's so many subtleties that are like so many little differences. And yes, there is a difference. If you've never negotiated a real estate contract, you're going to be nervous. You know, you haven't been through this before. You're going to be asking a mentor or somebody like, what should I do next? And you're going to go through this. It's tough. The first few are going to be a lot more challenging. Once you've done hundreds of them, and like anything else, and you have experience, you're going to know a lot of the subtleties. And we can't get into all the subtleties here, but you know, like we talked about, little things you can do in multiple offers, little things you can do with the letters, etc. There's so many little subtleties. So understand that you're gaining experience every single one, and just memory bank all these little experiences that you have. Mark.
You know, one thing that's interesting, you talk about an experienced negotiator and some of these low offers, and not even those clients, but other ones where it's a realtor that's actually been around for a long time and they just don't even counter offer.
Yep.
And it's they may have experience, but whether they're a good negotiator, I think is a very different.
That's a great point. So just because you've done it a whole bunch of times doesn't mean you're great at it.
Yeah.
I've installed hardwood floors like 1,000 times and they're still horrible, right?
Yeah.
So the skills along with the experience, that's a great point.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It's not only low borders. Sometimes you find the property is way above the market price.
Yes.
listed.
Yeah.
And you know, and your clients know that doesn't work. Maybe it's $50,000 more. And how do you handle those kind of situations? Do you like maybe give a phone call for the agent? Listen, this is overpriced. My client's feeling this way, and we are thinking of writing this offer.
Sure.
And take it and present it.
So it's a very specific situation I had in the last year. I had a referral from BC, and they were moving from BC to Alberta. I met them at a coffee shop, did my initial buyer consultation. I knew right away he was analytical and she was expressive. I could just tell by, you know, the initial couple minutes, and also by the phone call, because he said, you know, I'm interviewing 6 buyer agents, and I'm like, okay, I get it, right? And I want you to know that I want somebody who's willing to write low offers. I said, okay, great. And like, I'm just getting all the objections before I meet with them, right? Like, what other things are important to you in a realtor? Well, I want somebody with this, and they have to be experienced, they got to know this. And okay, great, so you need this, great. I'm just writing it all down. And when I met with him, I knew all the objections, right? So of course, I tailored my tone exactly to what he wanted. And I said, you know, if we find the right house and it's the right price, do you need to lowball the offer? Or would you write a reasonable offer? Oh, well, no, if it's reasonably priced and everything, I'd write a reasonable offer, but if it's this and that, so great, I have no problem with that. So if a home is drastically overpriced and it's been on the market for a long period of time, it's obviously the price is too high. So we'll write a low offer. Does that sound fair? Right. He said, and I said, and if a home has just come on the market and it's listed at a certain price and it's been a day or two on the market, how much wiggle room do you think we're going to have? See how I kind of asked to him? And he said, well, we're probably not going to be able to negotiate as much. I said, exactly, right? So we could either wait and see if nobody buys it, but if you really like it, we're going to have to make an offer that's really close to the list price. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. Great. So I already planted the seed, Mark, to your point, in the initial conversation, what we're going to be doing. If it comes on the market right away, we're going to have to be close to list price. If it's been on the market a long time, they haven't reduced the price, we could probably write a lower offer, right? And I have no problem writing a low offer. He was like, great, that sounds good to me. And again, the emotional connection, they found a home, they loved it. It made no sense for them whatsoever, but they loved the location, they loved the house, they loved the yard, everything, and they made an offer close to list. Okay? So experience is going to play a big factor. Just understand that you're gaining experiences. You're going to really understand the nuances of everything. I talk about the winner. This is again tough because at the end of the day, we're all winners in a real estate transaction. If the buyer and the seller get connected, the realtors get paid, the buyer actually buys the house that they want, the seller sells, that's what they wanted. We're all kind of winners, right? In a true negotiation, if you ever, let's say you're selling something on Kijiji, you're selling your bike, right? The winner is going to be the one that has zero emotion attached to the deal and is willing to just walk away, okay? The walk away person is always going to win their price and terms. And when I say winner, it's really just win the price and terms. They may not even sell, and that's a win to them because they're sticking to their terms and price because they're willing to walk away, very little emotional connection, okay? Whereas the person who has a stronger emotional connection and is willing to be flexible and bend on their price and terms, I'm not saying that they're a loser, but they're not going to win that negotiation. They're going to win the result. So that's what the difference is between a winner and a loser in a negotiation. The winner is usually the one that's willing to walk away and done, right? I'll tie that into something too. Another tip when you're negotiating, always call the other agent and you're looking for the personality style and any intel that you can get on the seller. So if you're representing the buyer, you're going to call, I've got an offer coming, my client's just writing the offer right now. Anything I should know? I always ask, like, simple question, right? Anything I should know about the sellers? Anything I should know about them? Oh yeah, they're having a baby and they're going to be this, oh great, information, right? So I'm asking for information from them. And I want to know what their personality style is because I'm going to be negotiating with them. I have to establish rapport with the other agent.
You can also ask them questions like, what's your availability over the next period of time?
Sure.
Because I'm going to be bringing you an offer. I'll make sure
Yeah.
you're not away or at
What's the
dinner
best
or-
email to send this to?
The more you can talk to them, it's kind of like a poker player. You glean information from.
Sure.
Maybe they sound excited, or maybe like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've said that too, right? It's, hey, my client's in the process of making an offer on your property. Oh, goody, right? Okay, we're going back with a little higher price, or a little lower price, sorry. Yeah, Nitsi, you had something?
I want to add something very, very important what you just mentioned is calling the agent before you write an offer.
Yeah.
It's very important. 3 deals, maybe in a month's time. 2 of them was Mariana Groa,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them had a big lien on it that I found out before.
Right.
Those 2 Mariana Groa properties, I just abandoned them. The third one, we wrote an offer, but we didn't make it close, and we did up for the BC class.
And you're also taking the opportunity to ensure your client doesn't get bumped out of a deal because you were taking so long signing and everything. They say, oh, that's great that you let me know because actually Nitsu has talked about writing an offer too. And you're going, okay, now we might be in competing situations. I need to know about that because we may need to speed things up, right? Meanwhile, if you didn't do that and you send your client the offer for signing and they delay on it and it's like, oh yeah, we're at dinner right now. We'll sign it when we get home tonight. They look tonight, oh, we're tired. We're going to wake up in the morning and sign it, right? Meanwhile, they missed out. So you're calling, you're getting intel, asking them, stop texting, really. I mean, if you want to be a professional salesperson, quit texting the other agent. geez, like pick up the phone, call them. And if they say, I prefer text, I'm in a meeting right now or something like that, text them and say, call me when you're done.
That's a great idea.
Sometimes
just
though,
called
you
you.
don't
Like,
have an option.
The
Like, if you're an
professionalism.
officer, like one agent was in the airport, like he says, I can't hear you.
Sure.
Right.
You know?
Like, there are reasons for it, but.
Yeah. There's the exceptions, not the
You
rule.
miss the talk,
The nuances of your voice
Yeah.
and the other person's voice and how much information you catch from that.
yes.
Like that person when I called, and I'll never forget that, but she answered, oh, that's awesome that you're submitting an offer. My clients are going to be so glad because they're like dying to get an offer. I'm going, oh my God, I wouldn't have got that from a text, right? We're sending an offer, great, right? Great, is that great? Like great, or is that great? Right,
The agents will tell you if you ask.
yeah, oh, thank God.
Sometimes, yeah, I gotta get rid of this.
My listing's experring in 2 days, and if I don't sell it in the next 2 days, somebody else is going to sell it. Simone's going to take the listing.
Yeah. You'd be amazed at how chatty some people are.
Right.
I
Yeah.
have a question about this. So if you're talking to someone on the phone, do you write them back an email to confirm things that you've agreed to on the conversation?
Not during verbal negotiations. And Alberta is so different than most other jurisdictions. We do verbal negotiations back and forth, and as everybody knows, nothing's real in real estate unless it's in writing. So the verbal negotiations can also even help a little bit in that what you said, like, it's not binding, right? This is just a conversation at this point. We're conversing, we're going back and forth on the price and terms. All of a sudden another offer comes in, you don't need to be rescinding anything. In Vancouver, it's like written counteroffer. Not only that, I don't know if anybody knows this, but in Vancouver, and just like foreshadowing for what might come here, when you submit an offer, you have to write a net sheet on your commissions. So the deal will be $1 million, my commissions are gonna be $25,000, and your net is gonna be this. Counteroffer, $920,000, my commissions are gonna be this. So you have to adjust your commissions every time there's an offer, counteroffer in writing, back and forth. Full disclosure. So how do you like them apples? Remain calm in the negotiation. We have it easy here, you guys. Like telling you, like 2, maybe 3 conditions, a fairly easy transaction. Just be really happy that we're in Alberta selling real estate. Be calm in the negotiation. We talked about that, really releasing those emotions or eliminating those emotions. And learn something every single time. So you ready for the bonus session?
Yes.
The bonus session is negotiating your fees. Okay? Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be very clear with this. You're competing. Remember the 5 styles? Accommodating, collaborating, avoidance, and compromising? None of those 4 work in negotiating your fees. If you're accommodating, what's going to happen? Would you lower your fees? Okay.
Well, thanks for asking.
Thanks for asking. Appreciate it. Right? If you're avoiding, would you lower your fees? Let's talk about something else for a while. Right? You said you were moving to where, buddy? No, you're competing. You're going to have to be Bobby Axelrod at this point. So nothing else is going to work in trying to get your fees to where they are. Oh, please, my kids need it because the education's so expensive now. Please, please. Okay. You're in competing mode. So have that first. Number 2, you have to display confidence and 100% belief in what you're selling. Okay? If you don't do this, and if you don't truly believe, like I've used this analogy a few times, at the lawyer's closing table when the client goes to sign off on their mortgage instructions, and they get the statement from the lawyers, and the lawyer says, well, okay, so here's the price of the house, and here's the mortgage, and then there's the real estate fees, and your client stops and goes, wait a second, how much are the real estate fees? And the lawyer says, well, it was $15,402. It's pretty good. Like, do you think they ever had that reaction? That's pretty good, right? Not bad. I mean, I thought it was going to be a lot more than that. I mean, for what I got, that was really good. No, most of the time they're like, oh God, really? That's what they made for what they did? They did nothing. So if you truly believe that your service and what you can do for them is worth what you're charging, it becomes a lot easier to negotiate your fees. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Next one, I said service your clients. Now, this is part of the belief. We service our clients to a level that I hope is higher than every other agent in the city. Okay? And by doing that, I have the confidence that I can charge more than everybody else in the city because I'm servicing my clients. So I've put into like processes and plans and procedures and documents and little things that I'm servicing my clients to a whole other level. So if you're servicing your clients that well, and then you're talking to someone in a listing presentation, they say, well, do you reduce your fees? You're like, man, I should be increasing my fees. Like, no, right? So you have this level of confidence because your service is so great and you know that you're gonna do the best job for them, servicing your clients. If you don't have a scripted answer or response, and somebody during a listing presentation says, so Mark Newstater came and he said he'll do it for 10 grand flat fee.
No, I've never seen that.
Using you as an example, of course. Will you match that, right? Or could you do better? Will you discount your fees in order to get the listing? There's all the same question reworded numerous times. If you don't have a scripted answer and another scripted answer, because you're going to give one scripted answer like, no, any other questions? And they're going to go, oh yeah, but you know, I had another agent over earlier and they were going to discount their fees and they'll do it for like 1% flat. And you know, I'd be happy to go with you, but I want this fee. And then you have to have another response canned that is so well scripted that it comes off in a way that they're just going to go, okay, I get it. Let's sign the contract. Okay. We'll talk about that when we get to the scripts session. Understand your cost of doing business. Can somebody like Mark Filbert break down for me what it costs you to take a listing?
Measurements, pictures, videos, cred fees, log services per month. It's just on and on and on.
Yeah. So most people, when I say how much does it cost you to take a listing, because most like you get that overpriced listing that you know it's probably not going to sell, and you're like, well, you know, a photo is going to be $150 and a measure $99, and that's going to cost me $300, and I'll have a sign on a busy street, so you know, it's worth it, right? So I broke it down this way. Let's say that you are going to sell 10 listings and you're going to close 10 buyer sales. So you're going to do 20 transactions in a year. And your average commission is $7,000 each. So what are you making for the year? 140 grand, right?
It's your gross income.
That's your gross commission, GCI, gross commission income. Now, to sell 10 listings, let's say you have to take 13 because 3 of them, for whatever reason, aren't going to sell. Okay? It might even be higher than that. But let's say you're taking 13 listings. Now, your business expenses, we know on average it's around 35% of your income is going to be your business income or your business expenses. And that's going to include, your business expenses include your measurement, your photography, your cell phone, your car, because you need a car to drive around, right? Maybe time we're going to leave out of this for now. Okay, we're going to talk about hard business expenses. So your brokerage dues, your insurance, CREB, RECA, REX, all the fun things like that. Usually amounts of advertising, Facebook, any of the leads and boosting and all that kind of stuff, marketing that you're doing, the phone systems, you add it all up, it's usually around 35%. Your numbers may vary. So 35% would be about $49,000 a year. Divide that by 13 listings. Your average listing costs you $3,800 to take. Okay? So if your listing costs $3,800 and somebody says, I want you to list it overpriced and for a lower rate, how do you feel about it? Now that you know how much it costs you, you're like, I don't think I can help you, right? Like my net here is going to be next to nothing. Like why? Why do this? So understanding your cost of doing business is super, super important. And that doesn't even include paying yourself, right? Which we got to pay ourselves. So that's an exercise that I think everybody should do. And that's part of the business planning is understanding your cost of taking a listing.
Sorry, Pablo, do you
Yep.
factor in your buyer sale? Like if you're doing a 50-50 split on those 20 deals, do you factor in your buyer sales into that costing or no?
No.
Okay.
No, because we're really focused on the listing side.
Okay.
The cost of working with buyers is very little. It's like you could allocate a part of your car payment and all that, but break it down this way and it really helps you understand the true cost. Following your process is going to be very important. You know, Mark, you mentioned at the beginning, what do you do about a client who is, you know, writing lowball offers and writing lowball? And I said, you know, my response is it all starts in the very initial meeting. And if you're not following the process, you're not going to be able to negotiate properly when it comes down to that time of negotiating your fees. Now, if you haven't seen Simone's, hey, how you doing?
Good.
Welcome.
My wife did some baking, so I'm
Awesome, thank you very much.
gonna make it today.
Sorry we missed you today. Yeah, thanks for coming. That's nice. So if you're not following your process, now if you haven't seen Simone's listing process video, look it up on YouTube. It's like, look up Simone Russo listing presentation. She's got the whole thing documented there from when you take a phone call all the way through to the actual presentation. By the time she gets to there, the fees don't even come up. Like,
And I have a problem with this slide because there is no negotiating fees. It's a non-existent thing in my life.
right.
Like, it just, because if you follow the process, they'll just follow you.
Now, sometimes you get like this is so funny because I can hear this happening, but Simone follows the entire process. She gets there, does the entire presentation, and you get this kind of objection. Is there any chance you'd do something on the fees, like a little bit, just a little bit? Sorry, no. Any other questions? Nope, I think that's it. Okay, we're ready, right? It's like,
But they have to ask.
Oh,
yeah, I've been told I need to, like, fees are negotiable, right? And
what I end up doing all the time, and Priscilla knows this, but I just have higher fees to start, and then I'll kick back $1,000. So if the question comes up, or $500, I'll give them something. But for me, it's not a negotiation. It's not it's either no or it's $1,000 or $500 or depending on the client. Oh, you're going to give me 10 listings? Okay, I'll give you $1,500 off. But we're not negotiating. It comes from me.
but aren't real estate fees negotiable? They are. I'm charging more. Be willing to lose. Again, remember when I talked about the person who wins in a negotiation is the one willing to lose and doesn't have an emotional connection? I get it. If you are, you know, you got the mortgage payment coming up, it's Christmas, the visa's maxed out, and you're at a listing presentation, they love everything, and they're like, would you take $1,000 off of your commissions? I get it. No, I'm willing to walk away from that and maybe not pay my mortgage, right? You have to make a business decision, okay? I get it. And if you have to discount your fees, discount your fees. But I don't want you to go into negotiating your fees with this mentality that I'm just gonna give, okay? Go in with the mentality that I'm gonna stand firm and I'm gonna say no and I'm gonna do my objection handling. And if it really comes push to shove, you can always back down on your fees a little bit, okay?
And one other thing I'll just point out is that also, if I do ever give on my fees on a listing, and I've said this before, I think that I make it very clear that we've already talked about fees, and when we go to negotiate a sale on that house, the fees are off the table, right? We've already talked about my fees. We don't get to talk about it again during the negotiation. That's off the table, and I'll remind them of that, or
The power in the negotiation with your fees comes from the perceived value that the client's going to have. If the client sees Simone and she's gone through her process, she's talked to them like 6 times before the listing presentation, she comes, does an amazing presentation, they're practically standing and cheering at the end, the value of using this agent is going to be really obvious to them, right? They're not going to want to negotiate much. Let's do as a car analogy, okay? I happen to have a vehicle you can't negotiate on. You know who Kevin O'Leary is, the Shark Tank guy, right? Funny guy, love him, hate him, whatever. Yeah, Mr. Wonderful, right? So he explained, because I follow Tesla, so I saw this article, and he was going to buy his wife a Tesla Model X. And he says, this was the stupidest thing ever. I go there, I'm Mr. Wonderful, don't they know who I am? I go to the sales staff and they're like these millennial guys. It's like going to the Apple store, right? And trying to negotiate off an iPad. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but we don't, I don't even have a discount button, right? And he's like, but I'm Mr. Wonderful. I'm hell bent. I'm not paying full retail for anything, right? So Mr. Wonderful goes to the Tesla store and he's like, I'm paying cash, first of all, $150,000, and I want that car, and I want it in red for my wife, and I'm giving you 130. What do they say?
No.
No, sorry. Again, we don't have a discount button. Sorry. Well, I'm walking out of here then. All right, sorry, Kevin. Okay, I'll give you 140. That's it. Top line, or else I'm walking out of here. Okay, sorry, Mr. Kevin. Okay, fine. Here's 150 grand. Like, he bought the vehicle. He couldn't negotiate one. That's like the most frustrating thing for a top negotiator, is when the other party is willing to walk away and lose it, right?
And we used to have that kind of situation, different price point, obviously.
Yeah.
But, it's just, they think they're doing you a favor. Well, I want to help out. I want to buy this. Can we get a price? But why would I sell it to you for a discount when I can sell it to her at full pop?
Right.
How's that helping me out? And sometimes we beat that blunt with customers.
Exactly.
Why you want to help me out? Do this. This is the price.
And if Kevin didn't see the value, if Kevin didn't see the value in that vehicle, he would have just said, fine, I'm going to go buy a Ford. Forget you guys, I can get an Exploder for like way less.
Why is it look great in an F-150?
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I think what you'll handle in the scripts is you have to, in my opinion, you have to be careful to always remember what's in it for them. And the what's in it for them is, if I'm so quick to negotiate down on my commissions, how quickly do you think I would negotiate down on your house?
Right.
And that's why I don't negotiate. I mean, I know
For sure,
I'm
that's
messing
the script. Yeah.
Really good.
You know what concerns me about that is if other agents are this quick to like reduce their fees like that, how quick are they going to be to drop the price on this, which is your biggest asset? I mean, you do need to maximize the value that you get out of this home, right?
Negotiate the best price.
Yeah. Great. So next session that we do is going to be, this is it for the rest of the year. This is it until the next decade. I can't. Next session is going to be January 7th, and it's going to be real estate fundamentals. And I don't want this to sound like it's going to be like the basics of real estate, but it is kind of the basics of real estate and a really important reminder for everyone on the fundamentals of real estate. So we're going to go briefly over time management, scheduling, everything in real estate in kind of a summary. Okay. And then I'm going to be doing some guest speakers. So there's going to be some guest speakers coming up and doing this. I can't wait for that. And that's it.
Can I say one
Yes.
more thing? So just to wrap it up, I want to thank Pablo. That was really, really great,
you.
Pablo. I want to thank everyone for showing up, and I would imagine that we're just going to really start to expand. So spread the word to other agents.